Alrighty, hello everybody. It seems like audios are getting connected, videos, you don't have to be connected if you don't want to. But if you would like to show us your faces, we're happy to see them. We're gonna all stay on our videos. Yes, and so hello everybody and welcome. My name is Sarah Daniels and I am the Recruiting and Operations Manager here at Inspiring Capital. You guys are here to learn about the IC MBA Impact Fellowship. And then today's session is called The Benefits of Adding a Professional Development Fellowship to Your Summer. And so if you guys are in the right place, awesome. We are going to have a time of question and answer with our three IC fellows. And so they were alumni of our 2020 cohort. And so we are joined here with Emmanuel Chan, Nora Graham, and Sophie Janaski. And so thank you guys for being here. You guys are rock stars and awesome. There will be a time of Q&A after I ask a series of 6 questions. So do feel free to chime in then by phone or by video, by either which way, if you have any additional questions. But if not, we'll wrap up. We'll wrap up after these kind of 6 questions and interviews with our alumni. So thank you guys again for being here. A little bit about Inspiring Capital. I'm just going to bring up our mission statement in case you guys do not know it. It's very exciting. We redid our mission statement in the last probably like 12 months or so. And so it has been really nice to have the language that we pair with the efforts that we do every day. So a little bit about Inspiring Capital. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied because I've been speaking for the last 3 hours on other webinars, but I'll try to slow down. A little bit about Inspiring Capital. IC is a certified B Corp that offers learning and development services to professionals and organizations. Here at IC, our mission is to guide people to meaningful lives in all the ways. So IC exists to give others the permission, invitations, tools, guidance, inspiration, and accountability that we all want and need to grow purposefully towards our wholehearted potential. So that together we can build fair, healthier, more inclusive, equitable, just, and regenerative teams, organizations, societies, and economies. It's a mouthful, but if you didn't get anything from that, it's just IC is here to guide people to meaningful lives. That's what we're in the business for. We want you to feel fulfilled in your life, to be efficient and effective and optimized on a team, and be part of a really wonderful organization that is out to better the world. And so we put that on 3 different planes: impact on the we, and the world sectors and planes of life. Hi, Ashley. It's nice to see your face. Good to have you here. So I'm just giving a little bit of a spiel, then we'll dive into one words and a little short meditative moment. So yes, thank you guys for being here. We have a tradition at IC that's called a one-word check-in. And so with everything going on in the world, we realize that we are holistic human beings. We're not just working machines and sometimes emotional wrecks. We're kind of all together in the middle. But so we like to ask everybody, how are you doing? And so in the chat, if you'd like to be a part of this, just write your one word in the chat. And so you can write your name, your one word, and then we'll kind of share and go from there. All these different one words. We have hopeful, stretched, pensive, optimistic. I love all the hopefuls. And mine is quick. Sometimes when I get excited, I like quicken up. And so sometimes I have to calm myself back down to be very clear. So yes, a lot's going on in the world, and we like to, really ground ourselves and reorient. I'm glad to see all of the hopeful and the optimistic words. On the last session I was on, they were more like stressed and anxious and nervous, and I'm sure we all feel some of that as well. So we are just going to take that, 30 seconds to a minute just to kind of ground ourselves and let all of those things release from us, so that we can be more open and present with one another here. So in order to do this, we're going to get into what's called our meditative posture by putting our feet flat on the floor, having a nice straight spine, rolling our shoulders down and back, and putting the hands in the lap, and then closing or diverting the eyes. And just start to breathe in and out here through the nose. So as we're inhaling, we're going to start to attach terms one at a time to things you want more of in your life. Maybe that's joy, maybe that's peace, harmony, connection, whatever that is. On your inhales, attach a term. And then similarly, on your exhales, attach a term that you'd like to release. That's stress or busyness, worry, whatever it is on your exhales, attach that term now as well. Do a round of 3 more breaths here, inhaling and exhaling with our terms. And after your third cycle, whenever you're ready, you can come on back to the group. So thank you guys for practicing, taking that pause out of your day, out of the session. And so we are going to start moving into the content next. Again, reorienting around, all these questions are to answer. What is the benefit of adding a professional development fellowship to your summer? And so this is on top of an internship. So paid internship, IC again, trains people and organizations around purpose and impact that again leads us to having more meaningful lives and having more meaning in our work and in our life. And if those are very simultaneous for you, then your work and life together. So we have our 3 awesome alumni here. And so I'd love to just start off with some general introductions. And so Emmanuel, if you could kick us off, just share, you have your name, Emmanuel, your school, your program. You are here an alum for the 2020 summer, but then what is your dream industry and dream role upon graduation as well? Pulling upon that kind of purpose piece.
Great. Thank you all. I'm really glad to be here and to just kind of be in this space with everyone. So my name's Emmanuel, but you can call me E-Man for short. I'm currently at USC Marshall, finishing up, can't believe it. I previously came from government, so was in federal government and came back to business school to just sort of see this intersection of government and technology. And so like my purpose in thinking about what that might look like is how can we leverage technology within government and make it more efficient. And hopefully that's in the cards down the road.
Great. And Nora, if you'd go next. Awesome. Thanks.
I'll make sure I'm saying everything. So I'm Nora. I'm at Kellogg School of Management in Evanston, and I'm in the 2-year program, and I'm second year, just started my second year. And in terms of dream role, I think that's it, dream role and dream industry, I'm most interested in social entrepreneurship and the early stage social innovation space, specifically in the education and sort of mental and behavioral health care sector. So I'm hoping to be in the startup space in that realm when I graduate.
Awesome. And then I can go next. My name is Sophie Janaski. I just started my second year at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. In terms of my dream industry and dream role prior to business school, I was working primarily in the climate early stage startup space. I went to forestry school before business school. And so after business school, I'm hoping to continue work in the climate space, hopefully at a slightly later stage company or growth company, ideally in some type of product or strategy role. But honestly, still figuring it out. Just know that that's definitely the issue area that I'm really passionate about.
Awesome. Thank you guys. As you can see, there's various, interests, various industries, and we find that lots of our fellows have, they find impact in their own lives and in where they want to work in various places. So it's meant for really anyone that it just wants to infuse their life with that impact and figure out more of their purpose and how they can live that out. So my next question, starting with Nora, I'll put it into the chat as well. But question 2 is regarding career and purpose/impact work. What questions did you enter the IC fellowship with? Like, what were you unclear about? And what did you hope to get from that fellowship?
Sure. So I didn't mention I was coming from the education sector before school. So I was a teacher for 5 years and then worked in the nonprofit space for 3 years. So really only had public sector and nonprofit experience in sort of like the social impact, this big umbrella realm, and wanted to understand what I really liked about Inspiring Capital is that they look at this like social impact space in like across all sectors. And so I wanted to get a better understanding of what that looked like in, for example, like impact investing or corporate social responsibility or social entrepreneurship, and sort of the topics that the IC fellowship was interested in, which, like, for example, like earned income strategies for nonprofits, like those things really just stuck out to me. And I like the breadth of, I'm making sure I'm answering the question, but I like the breadth of sort of those things and was curious about that. And then I think the other piece was just how I could trying to understand how I could use my MBA within different sectors. That was something that I was like, even if I wanted to go into education or mental health space, like what were MBA roles and what did that look like? And so was hoping to get those questions answered as well.
Yeah, and I can hop in here as well. So in terms of the questions that I entered the IC fellowship with, as I was kind of alluding to before, I had an issue set that I knew I was really interested and passionate about. And I had some very sort of like generalist experiences before business school. And so for me, I came in with a lot of questions around how can myself as an individual best make an impact. And so kind of trying to think about like, what are my strengths? Where do I sit within this issue set? Where am I best positioned to have impact and sort of push my personal mission forward. And so I think one of the things that was really attractive to me about IC in particular is it seemed to offer a space for reflection and some frameworks and ways of thinking about how do I tap into my strengths, how do I tap into my passions, and how do I potentially convert that into a meaningful path forward. When I think about what my career and also like what are the other parts of my life that I want to be having impact in. So those were some of the questions that I was coming in with. But yeah, Eman, I don't know if you have additional things to share.
Yeah, I generally had questions about my overall purpose in life. I think I still do, but I think coming into the program, I was really unsure about what my career trajectory was going to be like. And I think when you combine that with business school, sometimes you can feel like you're in like an echo chamber, especially when it comes to career options, right? Like, do you want to go in tech? Do you want to go in banking? Do you want to go in consulting? So really entering the IC fellowship, it was really about like exploring what this intersection of business and social impact could be, and just like breaking down some of those preconceived notions about business school and the career outcomes there. So for me, it was like, what does it mean to really cultivate a purpose and impact-driven career? Who should I really learn from? And what should I be doing like on a skill and development trajectory? I think for me, those two questions really defined my experience in IC. And I think the next question will probably get into answering some of that.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Eman. So Sophie, if you wouldn't mind starting us off, the third question is, what questions did that IC fellowship help you to answer and how? So I know we had lots of different mediums. If you guys don't know, we have an informational webinar that talks about the different parts of the fellowship, from the live webinars to the the work that you do by yourself on a platform to prepare for those webinars and so on. And so I won't go too far into that, but if you would say how as well, Sophie.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what questions IC helped me answer, I would say, so I wish I could come in and say, it's like, oh no, I have all my questions answered. I don't, but I think that's also kind of part of it, is it's this experience, it's a journey, and it's sort of like a lifelong exercise in figuring out your purpose and how to address it. But I do think some of the things that IC helped me with in terms of providing answers was, one, providing a space for that self-reflection I was talking about. And doing it in conjunction with a bunch of other folks who are thinking about the similar challenges to you. And as you could probably hear between me, Iman, and Nora, we are all kind of have different focus areas and are coming from different backgrounds, but are kind of grappling with similar questions. And so for me, it was really refreshing to hear all of those different perspectives and ways that other folks are thinking about the same challenges that I'm thinking about. So I think just like one piece is the group that, the group of fellows who are engaging in the program was really wonderful. Two, I think that there were a number of really wonderful frameworks that we walked through. So there were a number of exercises that you do in terms of working to define your purpose, reflective exercise and frameworks to think about how, like what your personality is and how that fits in with your working style. And then also a number of different frameworks provided by guest speakers who are also sharing their experience in their work. So getting to see how these frameworks and ideas and other people's journeys have already played out was just kind of like a helpful sounding board as I was thinking about me and my own journey.
Yeah, I just to piggyback off that, like I felt like I got a great view of this intersection of business and impact. And so to Sophie's point about industry folks, we had just had a breadth of really great people come through the door, people in philanthropy, social enterprise, corporate impact. So we just got I'd say like a buffet of knowledge, just to kind of hear them and hear their stories, and just also understand what it means to have really meaningful careers that are filled with impact in the business landscape. And so I think those conversations really helped crystallize for me what that could look like for me personally. So those reflective pieces that Sophie mentioned, we did things like the 5 archetypes, which is like a really cool leadership test. I don't think I'll divulge too many details because it's a really great test, but it's just a great way to sort of inform how you kind of work with others, how you can be reflective on your own leadership capabilities and how you show up in the world. And then the last thing is like I just got a lot of learning and gratefulness for the cohort. Like every week we would go into pods, and we would just talk about our internships. And so I felt really charged and supported during those times to kind of hear stories and to also just have an outlet outside of my own internship to have some of those conversations. And I just got really great advice that I could also apply to my summer internship as well.
So I think both of you covered so much of what I was going to say. But I would say for me, the biggest question, I sort of I often take a step back and I'm like, why am I, for example, when I was in education, why am I in education? Why did I get into this industry? Did I just fall into it? Is this, or is there some other industry I'm supposed to be in? And so it was so helpful, two things, to have these experts in all of these industries coming through, and to be really listening to like what piqued my interest, like what was I most drawn to, what did I want to read about and talk about. And then I think Sophie mentioned it, but we did sort of this thing called a purpose match test where it went way beyond. I've done like every sort of strengths finders and career test, and it went beyond that. And I thought got really much deeper into like what drives us, and it actually helped to identify. It actually identified industries that you might be interested in given the way you answered a lot of these questions. And something like that, it was like, I wish I was actually more passionate about entering something like the food space than I actually ended up being. And so it actually reaffirmed for me, like, okay, education or this like mental health sector, like those are authentically things I'm interested in. And like all of these conversations and this purpose match test and things sort of showed that. So that was like a hugely valuable piece of the summer.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, they're speaking to some of the, some of the parts of the fellowship that we dice out, week by week. And our team has actually had firsthand experiences with all of these materials and learning tools as well. And so I always light up when I hear them too, because I'm like, wow, I do love that test, or I do speak about that on like to my friends for random reasons. But no, thank you guys for sharing. So question 4, so this would be for, I think, Emmanuel, you're starting us back off. And so the next kind of part goes into the challenges of balancing this commitment. So what were some of the challenges in that you faced in participating in this professional development fellowship alongside a paid internship? And then how would you recommend that the next cohort members handle these challenges?
Yeah, I think the big one for me that really comes to mind is just overall time management. I assumed that I could just do it all perfectly over the summer. But balancing a full-time summer internship with a professional development opportunity like IC is it's no small feat. So I think for me, like I just realized halfway through that it was hard to sort of bridge that divide. So my advice is just to really like come in knowing how best manage time, and to really be present in all of those opportunities. IC just has an amazing curriculum outside of the meetings that we do have, and I wish I spent more time in that even more. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice, is just knowing that you're coming in with a big commitment, both trying to balance the summer internship and this opportunity. And then I think I'm a little bit more unique than Sophie and Nora on this, but my summer internship wasn't in Impact, so I was working at AT&T, and over the summer, and so for me it was just like an interesting kind of dichotomy. Like it was nice because I got to spend our evenings really soaking in what it really means to do business and impact, and then during the days just kind of work at a big company. So it was a challenge because in some ways there are some patterns and things that we were learning in the IC ecosystem that I wasn't necessarily applying overall in my summer internship. But I felt like those two things coming hand in hand actually helped amplify and really crystallize to what I really wanted out of my own career trajectory. So it was a challenge, but I also, in reflecting on that, saw it as like a really great opportunity.
I wouldn't say there were too many challenges. The biggest challenge was honestly just the pandemic and just all of this. And I would say the biggest challenge was being present and like making sure I was present for the IC webinars and events and everything that we were doing as a team. Because after a day on Zoom with my internship, and then I was also doing another little fellowship, it was like sometimes I would just be like zoomed out. And so IC like helps with that by doing, for example, like the mindfulness at the beginning of the session. Like I thought that was a really nice way to just like separate our internship day from the fellowship. But as much like as you can just kind of finagle like your meetings with your internship and stuff, so they're not on the main day that IC meets, like that would be helpful in terms of helping you to stay present. But there weren't too many challenges for me.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with both of you. The top two on my list were time management and Zoom fatigue. But in addition to that, there's just like one small piece that I would add, which would be I I'm on the West Coast, which meant that there was a time difference between a 3-hour time difference between for scheduling purposes, because I think IC is operating off of like New York Eastern time. So for me, there was the added piece of IC would meet during my workday. And so it was just really important to set expectations and make sure that everybody in my team knew that I was going to be unavailable and unreachable for that period of time, which also opens up the opportunity to kind of invite your team members to sort of be cognizant of what you're doing and being able to perhaps share back some of the things that you've been learning, and sort of invite them into conversation about there. There are a number of topics that we talked about in IC that were helpful to talk about with your internship team or your manager or folks that you were working with, in terms of connecting on a level with purpose and career, and having some of those moments of radical candor, or other things that we're learning about. So on the one hand, it was important to have that communication up front and make sure that I could carve out that time, but on the other hand, it also opened up additional pathways for bringing in my internship team.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your radical candor to us of just, it is hard. It is a commitment, and IC is a little intense when it comes to how much we love purpose and impact and helping people, solidify their purpose and impact and how much we think it can affect them. But it's been really awesome to see your guys, to be here for your summers. And these things can only help you in your future. And so I hope that they keep serving you, when you get to hard forks in the road, and have to make those kind of more serious decisions. My next question is around the advice that you'd give to an interested MBA to be successful in a summer with IC. And so again, that summer program being the professional development program paired alongside that paid internship. So now what would they need to do to be successful, and not just talking to those challenges, but just at large? And we'll start with Nora.
Am I on mute? Sorry. So I would say most importantly is carving out the time to actually be able to do the pre-work, to come to the fellowship, like being able to have those conversations. A lot of the times it was like a video or recording or something that I could like also listen to on a run, or just like something like that. So just getting creative, but making sure you're getting in that content, and it will definitely be worth it. Another piece of advice would be just sort of, this is really obvious, but making sure your paid internship like knows you're doing a fellowship. That's important. Don't just omit that. And then, and I did not omit that. And then I think another piece is thinking about how you can improve your work at your internship, like leveraging the fellowship to do that. So like using there's this incredible group of like 10 to 12 people or whatever it is, Sarah, of people who you can come to for advice after your internship. So actually like leveraging that and using that.
Yeah, I think I would +1 everything that Nora just said. Those are some of my top pieces as well. Just one thing that I would add that's more just adding color than anything else is just to underscore, I think, the importance of doing the pre-work and showing up and being engaged is I just found an incredible amount of value from it, because there's so much content out there. Even as someone who's been involved in climate and social work for a while, there's just so much content out there, and to have it curated and structured in a way that helps you pull meaning from it, and kind of keep you accountable to actually doing it and reading it and consuming it I found it to be really, really helpful, because I find that there are oftentimes things that I get excited to learn more about or to read, but always manage to push it off. And I found IC to be a really effective way to kind of hold me accountable to actually doing the things that I wanted to be doing and learn the things that I wanted to be learning. So that's just one piece. And then the second piece would be just an additional recommendation to be take advantage of all of the like your wonderful co-fellows who are going through the program with you, and especially if you're in a more virtual context, reaching out and trying to schedule time to get to know folks. I found it to be a little bit difficult sometimes over Zoom to do that, but making that a little bit of additional effort to do that I found to reap a lot of rewards.
Yeah, really, I think the IC Fellowship gave me a really great space to focus on like myself and to reflect and to think about, skills and things I needed to level up on. I think the summer internship is great, but it's work, and work is work. And oftentimes, you're managing projects and you're doing the day-to-day tasks. But I felt like this opportunity helped me just pull back and was a nice layer of like, okay, like what do I really need to do as a like an emerging leader, as someone that's really interested in the space, like how can I really lean into all that? So this in many ways like gave me just even more purpose throughout the summer than just work. Um, so I would say like how to be successful overall in something like this, like just being open. Um, there's like moments like when I was even just going through the modules or just having some of those conversations, I just found myself, oh no, like I gotta do this, like that feels uncomfortable. We do something called IC Matters, and you kind of share your story with everyone else in the cohort. And I'm all about sharing, but I think deeply personal things sometimes can scare me. So I think for me, like just being open to some of those challenges and kind of embracing the opportunity overall and the lessons and the learning will definitely uh, make you successful in something like this. I think you really do um, get out what you put in, especially for something like this. And yeah, it was just overall for me like a great thing to do.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And then, so my last question before we open it up for a time of Q&A from those on the call, is just final words of wisdom of why is this added investment of time and attention to a program like IC's worthwhile and important? And so you guys have touched on a few of them, but if you kind of had to sum it up of like, yeah, why should someone take part of their attention and time to do this? And why do you think it's important work? And so this one starts off with Sophie.
Okay. I think I probably answered this a little bit in my last answer as well, but as a quick summary, I would say space for self-reflection, a space that kind of curates content and holds you accountable to actually engaging with it. And 3, a community of folks who are also deeply passionate about impact and making impact and finding ways and places in their life to make that impact. And yeah, sort of being a part of that community and learning from each other.
Yeah, I'm gonna ditto everything what Sophie said, and I just would layer on like it is like definitely consider applying to this opportunity. It's just super unique, and I just think the network and the relationships you build are like just really really special. And so yeah, really consider that. It is just really great to have something like this for me over the summer.
I would add, as far as adding it onto your internship, like, you can't really go to your internship cohort or manager at the end of the day and say, like, in most cases, and like say, like, I'm not really sure that this work aligned with my purpose today, and like, or this task. And so it was just this really amazing place to come and reflect on that and like really think week to week, like, what is the work I'm doing in my internship aligned with what I want to do after school or this fall, and just like really give that space for reflection. I think that if you have not been in this like social impact realm before school, then I can see this fellowship as being like massively beneficial. And I think if you have been, it helps you to navigate this like this massive umbrella under the social impact realm like much more strategically.
Awesome, thanks. Thank you guys for, handling all of my questions. You guys make me want to do the fellowship. It's just so fun hearing all of your experiences and like being the one that has now put it on for a couple of years. And on that side of the coin, I'm so glad that you guys can all benefit from it, and hopefully in lasting ways. And so want to open it up to anyone who has a question. Feel free to come off mute or video. To ask your questions, since there's not very many of us. And I do have one question that like popped into my mind, which we might add if we need kind of a filler question, but I'm happy to take any from the audience right now. So we had one come in through the chat from Jessica, and she asked, how do you see IC being beneficial in your search for full-time roles? And so whoever wants to answer that of our alums, just come off mute and start it.
I can start, but I feel like I might just be echoing what I said before, in that like it really did help me to think narrow it. We did a lot of work over the summer about narrowing in on like things like in like industry, and had conversations in our peer group. So I was able to have those conversations, and then also Nell, the founder, makes herself very open to talking about your career search and like what might be interesting to you as far as full-time roles. You're part of you're part of the LinkedIn group and the IC group. Like, you can connect to anybody else that's done the IC fellowship in the past. And we have a Slack channel where full-time roles and part-time roles and things get posted. I'm sure go ahead, Sophie or Ema. But those are my thoughts off the top of my head.
Yep, those were, I think you hit all my main points, at least. I'm racking my brain. There's probably other things as well, but those are the ones that came to my mind.
The ones that come to mind, just around the alumni network too. Sometimes we have fellows maybe looking for a role or figuring out what it looks like, or want to connect with someone who's in that role. So when we get to those requests from any of our fellows, we then connect them to anyone else that we can think of in our networks and in our alumni network. And so Nell does leverage her personal network for that as well. And so it just expounds from there. You talk to one person, they tell you to talk to another person, and so on. And so I feel like it's just getting to the right people that are in very relevant jobs of what you're really going to be interested in. Any other questions?
Hi, yeah, thank you guys for being here. Curious to know, and this may be a little bit more of a macro question, but if your kind of definition of impact changed from before you did the summer, professional development opportunity to now?
I can start with that. That's a really great question. And off the cuff, I think the core sense of how I thought about impact did stay the same, but it also expanded. So one of my favorite ways of thinking that we kind of talked about was the different spheres of impact that one can have in their life. And I think I realized that I was very laser focused on my career as my primary pathway for having impact. And I do think through conversations and some of the work that we did through IC, it made me realize I was probably leaving out other areas of my life where I could also be having impact, or could think about impact playing a larger part in those spaces. So I don't know that it changed, but I think for me it probably expanded. I don't know if that answers your question, or if others have things to add.
Yeah, just like Sophie, I think my definition of impact really expanded too. I think I came into business school with like a preconceived notion that like you have to do social enterprise, like you have to do CSR, like you have to do these like business and impacty things that but like I think we're taught even from like the beginning that there's like a spectrum of impact, right? Like in your professional and daily life. And so for me, just kind of working through that framework really helped to expand my just sort of idea of what impact can be. That sort of then translated to us in the cohort talking about impact in your daily life. So we had something around conscious capital, conscious consumerism, and just had these interesting conversations overall. So yeah, it certainly expanded, and I feel like it has also opened up my mind to what other roles can be possible in that spectrum.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say, I feel like this is something I've thought about my whole life. So I wouldn't say like changed as much as just allowed room for those conversations to happen. I guess expanded in the sense that as a business school student, I tend to be on the more skeptical side of like the private sector in impact. And I do think my thinking was pushed in some ways that were positive around that. So yeah, I would say it expanded, I guess, a little bit.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. And I'm just going to add some resources to the chat. So I'm going to add my email. And then also, if you're interested on those different spheres of impact that Sophie was speaking to, we started up a social media initiative called the Impact Guide. And so if you look at that on Instagram, those kind of map out those spheres and then very bite-sized ways to get involved and have impact in those different spheres, which maps to one of our core frameworks of the program. We also have a Medium channel where we have started to interview alumni to get their insights captured, just like what we're doing here. And so those articles will be posted sometime as early as next week. So do keep an eye out for those as well. So I just put that into the chat now. Also, didn't you know that if you push space when you're talking, it makes you muted? Who knew? But yes, does anyone else have any questions? We have a few more minutes to take any. Oh, here's another one from Jessica. So did you mention your involvement in IC when applying and interviewing for internships? Or did you already have your internship when you were accepted into the IC program?
My situation, I could start just because my situation was a bit unique in that I was actually doing another fellowship program as well. So I think it sort of depends on your situation and like how, and if you already had the IC fellowship and then you got your internship, I don't see why there would be any problem with that. I really wanted to make sure with my program that would be okay, that I was doing a whole other, fellowship. So I did have that conversation with them and like made sure they were comfortable with it. And IC was super, super like accommodate. Like Sarah, I remember, offered to talk to my internship program if they needed somebody to talk to about the fellowship and things like that. So yeah, that was my experience.
That's a great question. I honestly don't remember. Because I think my interview process with IC aligned very closely with my internship process. So I think it was more of I don't think I mentioned it during my actual interviews with the startup I ended up working for, but it very quickly became a conversation once the offers had been extended. So for me, I don't think I did talk about it in the interview process, but it was sort of a point of conversation when we were discussing whether or not my internship would be the right fit for me.
Yeah, I fall in the latter bucket. So I had my internship when I accepted the IC program.
Good question. I'm just thinking too, and something that if you are looking for an impact related internship, we have resources to help you with that. Last year was a really crummy year for our fellows. We have something called a resume book. So we added everyone to the resume book and sent it out, and no one was hiring at that point because COVID had just started up and freaked out the entire world. So that was a very, unfortunate kind of timing. But usually after we do set our cohort, we do send it out to our network to say, these MBAs are amazing. We back them. They're in our program. And if you'd like to work with any of them, do contact us immediately so that we can get them set up with you. So we have that resource available as well. And so hopefully this year, COVID will, everyone's, already comfortable enough and hiring has started again. And so we are ready to help connect people in our network to different organizations in our network as well, in that social kind of impact sphere. Any other questions? No, totally fine. I actually thought of one question. It's something that I like to ask our fellows typically is, all of the mindsets and the learnings that we learn from the fellowship. How have you seen them come up, or how have they challenged you to think about things differently now that you're doing your second year of your programs? And so whoever wants to start that, just kind of put your hand up and just let us know. But yeah, I'd love to hear from our alumni about that as well.
Yeah, I can jump in real quick. So there's just been a lot of tools that I felt like I've drawn from. Um, but I think like for me, I mentioned it before. The 5 archetypes was just like a really great exercise. And I'm a wood type, uh, which I'm still exploring what that really means. But some of those things have really played out still in my second year. I feel like every class I've gone into this year, I have a group project, and like that like just having that baseline understanding of what it means, and what my leadership style means in those contexts have really just helped me internalize and also just be a better team player during my group projects this year.
I think I'm probably a little bit of an outlier for this question because I'm taking a reduced credit load right now, because I'm working part-time for the company I was working with over the summer still, which has been really wonderful. It was a great summer, and now it's been a great fall. I would say that I'm very lucky, I think, to be working with an organization that thinks very deeply about its impact and the way that we want to be thinking about impact and the different spheres of impact and how we want to have impact across those different spheres. And I would say, I think that's probably why the specific like spheres of impact and spectrum of impact frameworks were top of mind for me as we were chatting here, is because they're ones that I've referred back to frequently as we've been having conversations in work and in our teams about that, and sort of what is our company strategy for approaching that, and how do we build a product that supports our shared vision on it. So I would just, those are, yeah, I would say probably those two are the ones that are most top of mind for me.
This only, I would say, touches on a bit of the question, but kind of how it has changed my outlook on things a little bit for this fall. It's just really allowed me to tune out some of the noise. I think somebody mentioned sort of at business school, oftentimes people are recruiting for really similar things. And so just like recalling conversations with IC fellows from the summer has been, and just looking back at those materials and like thinking about spheres of impact and where I want to be making an impact has been helpful in thinking about tuning out some, like not just going along with the pack sometimes, which it can be really hard not to do in business school.
Great, thank you guys for answering my question. And so any final questions, we could take one more if anyone has one, but if not, happy to let everybody go and enjoy a nice night, hopefully a lot spacious night. Doesn't look like there's any other questions. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much for your experiences and your insights, and for your time, and for all the kind of commitment that you have to impact and purpose in your own life. So yes, thank you guys. We're getting thanks in the chat from everybody as well if you guys can't see it. But thank you, and I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Let me know if you have any questions, and feel free to reach out via email. All right, bye.